Hey, my lovely goal-getters. Welcome to the Moms Making Money Show. I'm your host, Amie Pederson, business mentor and confidence coach for the emerging boss mom. It's my mission to help amazing women just like you up-level yourself and your business because you are meant for more than wiping boogers and folding laundry. I'm also a wife, mother, urban farmer, influencer, green juice enthusiast, and an unapologetic lover of cowboy boots. I can't wait to help you grow your business by sharing my tips, tricks, proven business strategy, experience, and incredible guests. Hang on tight and enjoy the show. Today's episode is brought to us by our friends over at Sunbasket. Sunbasket is hands down my favorite home meal delivery kit. I first started using Sunbasket several years ago. They were the first people to use a paleo meal kit, and they have done so many great things to customize their meal plans and their meals to fit your dietary needs, whether you're a vegan, vegetarian, keto, paleo, or you just need a little bit of help thinking about what's for dinner. Every single meal that I had from these guys was amazing. It was so delicious. And it actually got me to eat things that I would have never thought about eating. And I just love not having to think about what I'm going to eat for dinner every single night. These guys send everything you need pre-measured, ready to go, and make amazing, delicious meals that my entire family loves. So as a busy working mom, it makes such a huge difference to be able to give my family quality organic meals that are tasty and new and fun and exciting. And I don't even have to go to the grocery store to buy the ingredients. They send them right to my doorstep. Everything is just how I need it, and it's delicious. So if you go to amiepederson.com/sunbasket, you will be able to get your savings on your first 3 orders. It's going to be a total of $80 over your first 3 months. And you guys, that is a smoking deal. So be sure you hop on over and grab your first box. Again, it's amiepederson.com/sunbasket. Welcome back to another episode of the Moms Making Money Show. You guys, I have the amazing Ashley Abercrombie with me today. If I could say that right without getting my tongue tied, that would be great. But we're going to move on. Anyways, you guys, she's coming out with a book. So I just had to set, have her on here, have her share her story. And, basically, I'm just going to give a little tidbit because I'd love for you to share the story. It's a story about rape, addiction, and how others can embrace, this story, the book itself, and how others can embrace healing through the power of their stories. And we often talk on this show about the power of story, about sharing who you are, sharing your own unique story, because there are other people out there who can relate to that. And while this topic is one that I think basically every woman in the world can either relate to or know somebody who can relate to this, there was absolutely no way I couldn't have Ashley on the show. So Ashley, I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about your journey and your journey leading up to deciding to write this amazing book.
Well, thank you, Amie. I'm so excited to be with you guys on this podcast. Thank you for embracing me, you and your tribe. It's just such an honor to be with you guys. And as you said, I think I have one of those stories that for a very long time, because of all the shame that I was living in, I thought that my story was really unique and I thought I was very alone in the story. But the more I've grown and the more years that go by, the more I realize how common it actually is for us to have these struggles. And we all have a past. It doesn't matter how clean or not clean it is. Every person has a past and we all have issues and problems and pain. Like I wish we could be exempt from that, but no one is.
True.
And struggle makes the story, right? Like that's actually the power of the story, is that we have struggles and we overcome them and we keep going. I think humans are more resilient than we ever imagined we were until we go through all the things we go through and we realize, man, I can keep going. And not only that, I can inspire other people to come too. So I live in New York City, in Manhattan, and I've lived there for the past 3 years with my husband and our 2 little kids. So I have 2 little boys who are 2 and 4. So basically what I'm trying to tell you is I haven't sat down or slept in like 4 years. if anyone's feeling me. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Legit, I'm feeling you.
I thought you might be. And then prior to that, we lived 15 years in the city of Los Angeles, but I'm actually born and raised Eden, North Carolina, which is a very small town, a beautiful town, a great place for me to grow up in. I really, really loved it. And I guess my story started there. My small town, while we had great, rich relationships, I feel like in small towns, everyone knows you, right? Like they know your business, they know what you're up to. There's no place to hide. There's no place to go. And at the same time, nobody really knows you. And so it was a great opportunity for me to learn more about myself by leaving the town and realizing, man, I've been pretending and performing my way through life, and I'm very good at wearing a mask. And I had to kind of reckon with that. And when I moved to Los Angeles, I had just had the worst couple of years of my life, going through addiction to eating disorders, drugs, alcohol. I had experienced a sexual assault. I had gone through so many very, very difficult things. And I moved to LA from North Carolina, really hoping that I could leave it all behind and just start over, like just start from scratch. Nobody knows me. I don't know anyone else. Like no one knows anything about me. And I thought I could start over. And the problem with that is that everywhere you go, there you are.
Yeah.
So I left basically nothing behind in North Carolina, and I just brought all the same things with me. And so I was forced to sort of look at myself and look at my life and make hard decisions to grow and to change. And so I say that this book I wrote is 20 years in the making. I always knew I wanted to write one, but I think that I've had a really long journey of uncovering the mask and really laying down any pride or ego I had, and also shame in sharing and telling the story. And I'm really happy that I waited as long as I did to write it. I think it's the perfect time for it to be now.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like everything comes in divine timing. So, when the time was right, I feel like, you just knew. And that's perfect, because that made, not to say that it made the words go onto the paper any easier.
Totally.
But it made it so that it wasn't like, okay, I can't talk about this, because so one of the reasons when we were talking before this that I was like, we absolutely have to have you on this show is because I work with a lot of women, and a lot of those women carry shame in a variety of forms, whether it's being mom shamed because they want to start a business, or, guilt or whatever. And like I said, I feel like this particular topic touches the lives of every single woman, like I said, whether it's directly or through somebody that they know. And I feel like now in this social media age, love it, hate it, feel indifferent about it, whatever that means to everybody. Now I feel like women are able to, and are starting to find the courage, find the strength to share their stories and step into their voice in order to make a difference, and in order to let other people know that they're not alone in these journeys. So, so you guys, huge thank you, obviously, for having that courage to share with us, and then having like double the courage to put it into writing and to write a book about it. Like, that's huge. So I just had to say that.
Thank you. I'm so grateful. You're saying such good stuff, because it's so true. And even the mom shame, I'm like, what I really wish, and what I really hope for this book, and not just the book, but just for humanity, is that once you know a story, it's much easier to be kind to one another. When you understand why a mom makes the decision to work, or why she makes the decision to stay home, or why anyone does what they do, there's a great reason. And story gives us this beautiful intersection with our lives where we can go, oh, your story helps me understand why you do what you do. And then I don't have to spend time judging you or shaming you. And so I think it's a really important opportunity story gives us to be able to be kind, to help each other instead of hurting each other with our words or with our judgment.
Absolutely. And there's so much of that judgment going around.
Yes,
and
there is.
So let's talk about this book. Let's talk about all the things, as much as you're wanting to and willing to share, because by the time everybody starts to listen to this episode, the book will be coming live and available for purchase or pre-purchase. So, let's go through all the things.
Love to.
All right. I'm going to let you go ahead and lead, because this is a very personal book, and it, and obviously feel free to share as much as you're comfortable with, but, how have you shared this story before, and how did you feel about being so vulnerable?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't think I started out going, hey, I just can't wait to tell my story with, everyone under the sun. I mean, that's most definitely not how it started.
Right.
But I realized as I began to get in more honest and open, vulnerable relationships, and especially reciprocal relationships, because I was the type of person where people very often came to me for advice, or they came to me for help, or they came to me to listen. And I love doing that. Like, that's so awesome. But the downside of that was that I never shared what I needed, and I never shared what I really was dreaming about, and I never shared any of my needs. And so the relationship wasn't reciprocal. And the reason I was doing that, obviously, was because I was scared to be vulnerable, and I was scared to show that I had needs. And I was also very afraid that if somebody really knew me, they would reject me. And so I think that getting honest with myself first about my own story and the things that I had gone through, and then making the difficult decision to share with others my real whole truth, like the whole story of my life, without brokering, without trying to live up to some standard of my past, without trying to live up to some standard of my future. I just was in it where I was. And as I began to do that, I realized, man, we all have a story, and this is so powerful. And I felt connected to people again. And I think every time we experience a significant amount of connection, then we grow, and we also realize, like, we're not alone, and we understand how much power connection really has. And that's the danger of the social media world, which I am here for. Listen, I love it all. It's so much fun. I really enjoy it. But the danger is that we are constantly connected. But just because I watch your Insta stories every day, or you watch mine, doesn't mean that we have a real relationship, or that I actually know what's going on in your head or your heart. And so I think we're really connected, but at the same time, we're more isolated than we've ever been. And so it's very, very important for us to continue to stay connected in real time, to stay connected in real life, to stay in reciprocal relationships with one another. And so it's scary to be vulnerable. It's so terrifying. I'm sure everyone listening has experienced that. You know where you're vulnerable, and you know where you've been courageous to be able to share, and where you're brave. But at the same time, that is the very thing that allows us to feel connected, to feel like our most true self. So we need to be vulnerable. But I didn't like it in the beginning. You just do it, right?
Right,
because it's the right thing to do, not because you're like, can't wait to do this.
Well, and you're right about the connection too. I feel like, I always say, like, social media, like Facebook, whatever, it's like the best way to stay in touch without actually staying in touch, right?
Totally. That's perfectly said. It is. It really is. You can trick yourself into thinking you spent time with people almost. It's a very weird world.
But with that said, I feel like, because so many women now, which I think this is obviously an amazing thing, we're entrepreneurs and we work from home, which means if you're like me, you're sitting in an office by yourself most of the day, and you're working on your work, which, granted, that's how it is in the, quote unquote job world, right? You sit in your office and you do your work. But from my experience, you do your work. You also go out, you get coffee, you say hi, how's it going? How's your dog? I heard you got a puppy, like all the happy things, like how's your wife? Stuff like that. And you actually have that, I don't want to say like physical, but you have that in-person connection and conversation with people. And I feel like that is lacking. So bringing all of this forward and creating a connection through vulnerability is so powerful.
It really is. And I have the same struggle that you do. I work from home as well, full-time writer. And so I think that it does make it difficult. Like, and if I'm speaking to anyone, it's my 2 and 4 year olds, so it can, like, we need real humans, and we do have to take the opportunity to get out there and do it. I think it's easier to hide too in the world that we're living in. And I think hiding is so dangerous because we don't even realize what's going on with us. It's like the subtle decline, where you just realize, like, 2 months down the track, man, I haven't really been able to share my life with anyone the last couple of months, or I've been running so fast that I haven't stopped to really process my life or reflect on, is this going how I want it to go? Is my life what I hope it will be? Am I able to, reflect my values and my lived reality? And so I think it's important to take the time to slow down, to be with others, and really helps prevent us from pretending and performing and from hiding.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, because, even the people who are mean on the internet, because they're there, they're mean.
Oh, they're there. The haters are real.
The haters and the trolls and whatever. I call them like keyboard warriors, because they just sit behind their keyboard and they can say whatever they want because they don't actually have to, like, look you in the eye. You know what I mean? To say
Yes, I do. Yes.
But that still leaves a mark. It still,
Mhm.
it still affects people, even if it's just momentarily. I think that
Yes.
a lot of people now are getting to the point where they're working on themselves and their mindset, and they're able to recognize it at face value a little bit
Yeah,
better.
that's right.
So on page 39 of the book, you write that being a truth teller is a process. Can you explain a little bit about what this process is?
Hmm. So I think that it's a process to becoming who you really are, and I guess that's a lifelong evolving. I'm not who I was 5 years ago. I'm not even who I was a year ago. And so it's important for us to understand that truth telling is a process, getting to the point where you own your own story, where you're able to tell the truth about who you really are and where you come from, and that you're able to tell the truth about what you really want and what you really believe and what you really desire out of life. And then it can help you form your convictions and values about everything else in the earth, whether it's, family values, or it's, how you feel about faith, or how you might feel about finances, like whatever the things are. The truth telling is a process, and we grow in our values as we grow in our life. And that's a really powerful thing to understand. Like I can try something out and then realize, like, wow, I thought that was a value, but you know what? It just isn't. And so that's a process. Right. We evolve as we go. And it's okay to be on the journey of taking your mask off as well. I think sometimes we think we just got to rip it off like a Band-Aid, but we actually have to take a minute and go, is this person safe? Wait a minute. They always make me feel like crap when I'm around them. Maybe they're not the safest person to practice taking my mask off with. So it's a process to discover not only owning your own story, but also discovering who around me is a safe person, who's cheering me on, who's really able to be in reciprocal relationship with me, who shows up for me. Who do I show up for? And allowing yourself a process to be able to be a truth teller.
Yes, I love that. And I feel like a lot of people don't stand in their power enough to share that truth. And,
Yes.
because they're afraid of judgment, they're afraid of what other people are going to
Totally. Totally. My spiritual director asked me a great question. She said, what is the worst that could happen? And then I would answer her. And then she would say, can you survive that? And I was like, yeah, you know what? I can survive that. So when I would think, the worst that could happen is I would be totally rejected by this person that I'm opening up to. And she's like, could you survive that? Yes, I could. And so that's been a helpful benchmarker for me to really understand, like, okay, what can I do? Like, what is the worst that can happen? That helps me break through the fear because you realize, like, okay, you can survive rejection. You can survive abandonment. You really can, on the journey of figuring out who's safe and who's going to be good to have in your life to cheer you on.
Yeah, that's so true. One of the other things about your book, like one of the themes in the book, seems to be like the whole idea of you are not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk to us about why that's so important?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I'm sure we've all had those moments where you just feel utterly alone. You could be doing what you do on your job. You could be doing what you do in raising children. You could be doing what you do as you're longing for children. You could be doing what you do in your friendships and in your day-to-day life and just feel like I'm alone. And that to me is one of the worst feelings because it makes you feel dejected. It makes you feel like you want to give up. It makes you wonder what the point of anything is. And that's why, to me, it's important to emphasize you are not alone. It's also very, very important for me personally to emphasize to people that in their story, they're not alone. So whether you've struggled with addiction or you have struggled with a marriage or you're struggling with a great loss, it's important to remember that you are not alone. You're not the only person who is going through that, and you're not the only person who has experienced that. And that's not in a shaming way. That's just to say you're not alone. Sometimes we can feel like when we're struggling with something, we're the only one, which is why we have to hide it. But the truth is people are struggling. Like, it is the universal language. We have great wins and we have great losses. And most of the time it's happening at the same time. And so I think it's really important for us to remember we're not alone. When you know you are not by yourself, it is encouraging to continue whatever it is that you're doing.
I totally agree. Now, you also talked about a time when you struggled with being part of a church for probably around 15 years. And I know all of our listeners, some are religious, some are spiritual, some are everywhere in between. Can you share what you kind of learned from this process?
Well, I think being a part of a faith community for 15 years taught me some amazing things. I learned what it means to sacrifice. I learned how to not be selfish. When you are around people all the time who are not like you, who don't think like you, who don't look like you, it does this beautiful refining where you realize, man, my way is not the way. The way I think and believe is not the only way to think and believe. And so it made me less selfish. It made me more sacrificial because I wanted to share and to serve others and to give my life away. And so that was some of the most beautiful things that I took away from the faith community. I also met my husband there, that's a win. That was awesome. And some of my best friends in the world, we're still very, very close. I think that I also learned that it's okay to walk away when you need to, and it's okay to make a change, and it's okay to have a transition. And for the longest time, I'm a very loyal person. And so I feel like at times I don't allow myself to go when I need to go. And so it's important to learn how to transition and how to do it. When you feel like you need to go, you go. And that was one of the huge takeaways that I took from that, because it was a difficult transition for me to be able to walk away from something that I was a part of for 15 years, but it was a good change and I needed it. And so it was really important for me to be able to do that. So I learned a ton.
That's wonderful. I love that. When you became a pastor in Manhattan, you write that there was a spiritual civil war. And you write about this in your book. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you guys, I landed in Manhattan the year of the 2016 election. And so
what a place to be.
Yeah, correct. It was so wild. I mean, going in to be a pastor, and it was a very, as we all remember, and in some ways it still is, frankly, it felt like a very volatile time. And it felt like people were making decisions about what camp they were going to be in, and not just decisions about what camp they were going to be in, but like, who are we going to hate outside of our camp? And I did not love that. I mean, it was a terrible time. In fact, there were a few times that I would call mentors just like sitting in the corner in the fetal position, like, did I do something? Should I be here? This is very dumb. Why am I here? This is a dumb job. I should leave. Like, what is happening? Because it did feel like there was a spiritual civil war. And in some ways, I needed to take a side. As someone who's a pastor, I needed to take a side on issues like race and gender equality. I was like, hey, it's very clear what camp I'm in. There's no question.
Right.
And at the same time, I didn't want to be the kind of person who's like, us for and no more. Like, here we are building our thing. And if you're not helping us build it, then you're out. We don't like you. Or if you don't believe what we believe, then you're wrong and you're bad. And so learning to be in the middle of all of that hostility. And in New York, it's like a beautiful melting pot. I mean, we have thousands of cultures that are represented. We have so many different languages that people speak. And so it's really important there to understand how to be in different belief systems and different values, and also how important they are, how we can learn from one another. And watching the news media during the 2016 election, it was very difficult to walk with people in a faith community and to help people decide not to take a side and to not also be bitter. For me, I had to be like, I don't like the Christians. I like the humans. I don't like the Christians, and I'm like, how am I going to be a pastor when I don't even like you?
Right.
And so it was a beautiful opportunity for me to be able to learn how to love people who don't think like me, and love people who have what I would think are very strange values concerning humanity, and learn how to be around them, but also to speak the truth in the middle of that. Like, I didn't shy back from talking about hard things, whether it's abortion or it's gender equality, or we're going to talk about race, or we're going to talk about, different faiths. I was not going to stop doing that just because I was a pastor. It didn't mean silence for me. It meant that I needed to rise in even more truth. And I think that we all have that in our life, those places where we have to rise up and tell the truth. It's important. It changes lives. It helps people cope. It helps us carry on. So yeah, it was a wild time. It's still wild. It's Manhattan, but that was like a real wild time.
Yes. And getting down that particular rabbit hole gets extra, extra wild most of the time. So
100%. Yes. But it's affecting us, right? We're all watching media. No one's unaffected. We're on social media. We're watching the news. We know what's going on. So I feel like it's important that we open up space for honest, considerate dialogue. We need that.
Yeah, agree. So just a couple more questions about the book, and then I'm going to kind of turn it over to you to just tell us a little bit from your heart about it. But in chapter 9, you wrote, the table is both a pathway and a solution. So tell me, how has this worked in your own life, and a little bit
Yes.
about what that means for you?
So the table for me represents such a wonderful opportunity to gather. I love seeing people. I love myself to sit down at a meal. I don't care what it is. Have a frozen pizza from your freezer, put a cheese board together. I don't care what the food is. You can sit at McDonald's. It doesn't matter. But it's a beautiful opportunity for us to sit together in our shared need. Like, we all need to eat. And there's something that sort of levels the ground when you're sitting across from one another and eating. And it's really powerful. It's life-giving. And I think that it is a pathway toward freedom. It can be a pathway towards community. It can be a pathway towards us understanding one another. It's a pathway toward empathy, and it also brings solution. Like, when we gather together at the table, if we're discussing a hard topic or we are going through difficult loss, I'm sure we've all lost a loved one or lost a family member, or maybe somebody is diagnosed with a disease that's far outside of our control. And we're sitting with someone over a meal or over a hot cup of coffee and just talking and sharing and figuring out what are our next steps and what are we going to do. The table brings an opportunity for solution. And again, it's a great way to return to story, sitting at the table. And as a person who struggled with eating disorders, it seems very weird that I would say this about the table. Like, how does a person, that struggle with eating disorders come to be a big fan of gathering at the table? And I think in my healing process, what used to be a real source of pain and a source of wounding and a source of control for me has now become a place of freedom and an opportunity to be able to connect with others. And so the table is so important. And in this digital world, don't we have to protect it? Because I can eat lunch while I work. I can work right through dinner. I can let my kids sit and eat chicken nuggets while I scroll through Instagram. There are a million other options, but really taking the time to sit down together is life-changing for us and for the people at the table with us.
I love that. I like the idea of, at least for dinner, sitting down and, eating together and just talking about the day. And it all goes back to connection. I swear.
It does.
All of it does. So last question before I turn it over to you. What action do you want your readers to take when they're done reading the book?
So my action that I would want readers to take away is that they are able to own their story and take their mask off in the areas where we find ourselves pretending. I would want somebody to be able to have the courage to say, you know what, I'm going to lay this mask down. It's been my protection. It has been my help, but now it doesn't serve me anymore. So I'm going to lay this mask down and I'm going to get very honest. And then I'm going to live my life with some gumption, because we need grit and we need gumption to be alive on this planet right now. And we don't need to pretend and we don't need to hide. We need the real you to come out. We need the real you, your contribution, what you were created to bring to this world. That is exactly what we need, so that they would take the mask off and live with some gumption. That is my desire for people who read this book.
Yes, I love that. I love every part of that. Now, tell us a little bit about, just kind of like, off the cuff, from the heart, about this book and kind of what it means to you to put it into the world.
Rise of the Truth Teller, like I said, has been 20 years in the making. And so it is truly a labor of love. I know that is a cliche that people say, but now I fully understand it. Being able to write my life story and then to speak to relevant topics of our day, whether it, like I said earlier, it's abortion or it's sexual assault or it's gender inequality or the issues that we're facing with race, or talking about very difficult faith things, or calling leaders to the carpet when they need to be called to the carpet for the ways that they are hurting others. I think that this is a really important dialogue. And I don't know a woman alive that I don't believe in and want to champion. Truly. I think that women are such an incredible, valuable asset to our planet. And I think that every single woman, whatever she's doing with her life, be a stay-at-home mom, or maybe she's in college, or maybe she's an empty nester, or perhaps she's building a business, or maybe she's got a corporate job, whatever it is, young and single, older, widowed, I just believe that women have so much to give. And I want to empower women to do whatever it is that they are created to do. And for them to know that it's significant, that it actually matters, that no one should be able to make us feel like our contribution doesn't matter. And so I'm hopeful that the book will do that for women who are reading it.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Now, let's talk about when this book becomes available.
Well, it officially releases on October 1st. So I'm so excited about that. And you can buy it wherever books are sold. I can't believe it's out there. I already told you this earlier, but I'm recording my audiobook right now today in the city of Chicago. And no, it's just so exciting. So you could listen to me read if you enjoyed my voice. And if not, you can buy it.
I'll be listening.
Yes,
except for
perfect.
kind of like, for me now, I'm kind of like, oh, this is my girl Ashley, and I kind of want the autographed copy. No.
I'm very happy to provide. Yes.
So
I
now
will
I'm
mail
actually,
you one.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. So I'll read it and listen to it.
Yes. Wonderful.
So let's talk a little bit about where we can get this book. It's called Rise of the Truth Teller, Own Your Story, Tell It Like It Is, and Live with Holy Gumption.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you can literally purchase it anywhere books are sold. So you could buy it on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles. You could get it at Target.com, ChristianBooks.com, Baker Books. That's my publishing house. You can buy it there. Books A Million. Wherever you can buy a book, you can get it.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, you guys, this is so awesome. So before we get off here, one thing that I always like to ask everybody on the show is, what kind of fear or setbacks, or, you know, maybe it was a little voice in your head or judgy Aunt Judy or whatever.
Yes, that's amazing.
What did you have to overcome to get this book to where you're sitting in Chicago recording the audio and the paper version comes out, paper/Kindle probably, comes out here in a month?
Gosh, I mean, some things that I had to overcome. Honestly, I think that I had to overcome a few things. One of them is being a know-it-all. You know, I think in the very beginning, I felt so strong about needing to be certain about everything. Mm-hmm. And then as I developed an understanding that things are in process basically always, then it made me feel like, okay, I'm certain in my convictions, but at the same time, I'm flexible and I don't know it all and I don't understand everyone's life. And so I feel that that's made me a better writer because I want to contribute to all different types of lives. But if I had just thought like my life is the right life and my way is the best way, I think I probably would have just communicated to a person who's just like me. And over the years, I've been able to grow in laying that down and going, you know what, we're all in this thing together and I need to learn that I don't know it all. So being a know-it-all is one thing I had to overcome. I also had to overcome, fear. Very real fear, that feeling like, man, there's a billion books out there. Like, why would mine need to get published? Why should mine get published? Does this even make sense for me to do this? I also was a ghostwriter. I've been writing for about 20 years. And so I was a ghostwriter on a lot of different books. And so I knew how the process went, but I just was like, man, I don't know if it's ever going to happen for me. And so I think that was an important hurdle for me to overcome, that it's okay for me to have that dream. And it's also okay for me to pursue it. And so I think when I really got serious about writing a book and doing a book proposal and getting that done, I was able to kind of overcome that fear of just like, no one wants to hear from me. Why would anyone want to hear anything I have to say anyway? Isn't everything that needs to be said already been said, And realizing, no, we all have a unique contribution and that includes me. I'm always telling people that, but I had to remind myself I also am included in that, and give myself the permission to write this book and the permission to go after a publishing deal. So those were two of my biggest hurdles I had to overcome.
Well, girl, you did it. And it's all happening. It's all happening like right now as we speak. So yay. And a huge congratulations on everything. You guys, this is so awesome. And I know everybody talks about like, one day maybe I'll write a book and all of this stuff. You guys, take it from Ashley. She did it and she is doing it. And she's out there getting super crazy vulnerable, making an impact in the world, making an impact in the lives of other women by sharing her story. So I think she's the absolute perfect example of the power of story and the power of sharing the story and being vulnerable. And, I know we all talk about like Brene Brown and getting through like some of that vulnerability and all that stuff. And it's true. It's so true. So yeah. Thank you so much for getting vulnerable with us and getting vulnerable with the Moms Making Money Show listeners today. And thank you for writing this book.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so grateful for the way that you champion people. It's really beautiful. I'm like, I love just being with you and being encouraged by you. And so what a beautiful,
thank you.
What a beautiful business and podcast that you're building. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. All right, everybody. One last thing before we hop off, can you tell everybody where they can go show you some love and follow you in all the places?
Absolutely.
Either before or after they buy the book.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you. So you can find me on my website. It's www.ashabercrombie.org. And then you can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ash Abercrombie. And then I'm over on Facebook at Ash Abercrombie NYC. So you can find me, and I would love to connect with you.
So awesome. Well, you guys, we're probably going to be following up with Ashley and hearing her again on the show. Let's make this book a New York Times top selling book. And,
come on.
Yes. And then we're going to have her back on and we're going to celebrate. We're going to do like a little party. And
I love it. I'm in. I love a good party.
All right. It's out there. It's in the universe. So it's happening.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for sharing everything with us today.
Yes, my pleasure.